My name is Keelie Andringa. I am the Chief Policy Officer at Miami Valley Community Action Partnership in Dayton, Ohio. We serve a four-county service area with LIHEAP specifically that is a combination of rural, urban, and suburban communities. So that being said, our service area is quite large. We're actually one of less than 100 agencies across the National Community Action Partnership Network that serves that mix of clients, rural, urban, suburban. And I think one thing that can be challenging is communicating and figuring out how to communicate with a variety of cultures and a variety of folks. So we specifically see that with our outreach and engagement materials and the methods that we use to outreach and engage folks in participating in energy efficiency programs. We do offer LIHEAP as well as home weatherization services, and often those things go hand in hand. But what works in our rural communities oftentimes doesn't work in our suburban or urban communities. So it's really about figuring out what your clients need and how to build trust to empower them to utilize the program that makes a huge difference in their lives at the end of the day. So for example, in our rural communities, I know that when I go to a community event, oftentimes I'm not going to see as much of a return on investment as I would if I were in an urban or suburban community. What it's really about is building relationships with folks in our rural communities to get them to trust us, to get them to understand we are here to help, that there is no shame in applying or asking for assistance, particularly when you're on a limited or fixed income. We've seen folks go without in those communities. That's where I started out as a county director, and it is heartbreaking. So when we're building relationships of trust, we're working with local partners. Our veteran services offices are huge assets, our senior resource centers, any space where folks can gather and feel they are trusted, even if it's just like a local community brunch spot, excuse me, or coffee shop. That's where we want to be, and we want to have our materials. Whereas if we are in an urban or suburban area here in the Midwest, those community engagement events can be really spectacular as long as you have something to ensure the entire family is engaged. We have found that that's beneficial, so we can create space for parents, guardians, grandparents to talk to us about their needs. So in addition to having a variety of folks that we're serving here in a variety of communities, I think the other thing that's pretty unique to the Midwest, and although we're seeing it more across the nation lately, is the fluctuating seasons, right? Our summers are very, very hot lately, and our
Yes.
winters are very, very cold. And as the weather continues to change, as our climate adjusts, we're finding that a lot of our times that we have set out for heating and cooling seasons often aren't meeting the needs of clients when they need met. So we are working heavily with our state associations and with our state compliance arm, the Ohio Department of Development here in Ohio specifically. And I've heard this throughout our region as well, to find ways to expand the program to meet the needs of the seasons while also meeting the needs of our regulations and the paperwork that we need to fill out and all the things that have to be done to provide these programs. So it's a variety of communities and this crazy fluctuating weather. Some winters are great and some winters are terrible, and we're just trying to figure out how to meet the needs of the clients no matter the weather.
Do you have any unique examples of strategies that you have deployed to get people that are on the fence on board with receiving assistance?
I think if I'm going back to community engagement events, I mentioned
Yeah.
earlier this sort of kid-friendly type of atmosphere. We have found, and this is going to sound crazy, and I know I've mentioned this at NUAC before, but we have found if we can procure outreach materials that are grant approved, as long as they state our name and the program here in the state of Ohio on the material, that keep kids engaged while we're speaking to the parents, it makes a world of difference. So our big
Yeah.
example at this agency are light up yo-yos. We ordered those 1 year on a whim and thought, okay, let's see how this works. We have a lot of children in our lobby, particularly during the summertime when school is out. We do a lot of local county fairs. That's a great way to engage folks. But instead of just having them come up to pick things off the table, we'll do like a wheel of wow and spin the wheel so that the kids can win a prize while another person is talking to the parent or guardian or whoever's there today about the program and what's available. And I know that sounds a little, we don't want to withhold. We want to make sure we're accessible and just being kind to the community, but it allows us to engage on a more specific level. I will say that oftentimes, depending on the community, again, rural versus urban, suburban, it starts a conversation. And if we're handing out applications right then, we've even processed on site if we have a private area and a Wi-Fi connection to get it handled. Something to keep the kids or folks with them engaged makes a huge world of difference in engaging individuals and empowering them to be a part of this program. I think another really cool strategy that we've done specific to my area, we have a huge refugee population here. in Southwest Ohio. And our community leaders within that refugee population, folks that are trusted and identified and able to help us translate without the use of a translation service, which can sometimes feel really scary and impersonal, that makes a world of difference as well. And it's taken us time to build those relationships. We are very thankful to our partner agencies with whom we could do so little without them, to build those relationships to say, this is a trusted person in this community. They can help you translate. And we have found that when that person comes in to complete the application with the family in question, there's so much more calm. There's a sense of peace. There's a sense of this is okay. And oftentimes, folks will come back the next year with their application ready to go for their re-verification or for their HEAP credit or whatever they need to do, feeling that empowerment because a trusted source brought them to us. So we think that those are two pretty cool strategies that we encourage folks to do. It does take a lot of legwork, and it certainly doesn't
Yeah.
happen in a silo.
What strategies have you used for the elderly populations? And if you have online applications, how have they been handling that transition?
It was challenging. So prior to this position, I worked in a rural county, and then I ran the LIHEAP program for our entire agency for several years. And
Mhm.
it really was dependent upon where those elderly folks lived. In our rural counties, it was not going to benefit me to chat about the benefits of an online application because folks in
Mhm.
that moment, and things have changed a little bit, people are advanced, they get more comfortable, technology's come a long way, particularly since we navigated not being able to be together during COVID.
Yeah.
But at that time, it was really hard for folks to be like, why would I do this when the state mails me an application? So that's one benefit
Mhm.
we do have. In our rural counties, we also have the benefit of them being smaller spaces. So like folks don't hesitate to come in and pick up an application. Our staff will
Mhm.
work with them while they're there to complete it. Because 9 times out of 10 with our folks that are in the elderly population, they're on a fixed income, Social Security. The documentation is very easy to get, very
Yeah.
easy to obtain, and they're prepared coming in. We don't have so many other variations of jobs and things like that in the household. So that's been easy. I will say again, though, that our veteran services and senior resource centers, senior centers in general, even having applications on the counter at the local library, and really putting our ads in print, not just on the internet. We have the option when we talk about these programs, as we're required to at least once per month, but we like to do it more often than that by the state of Ohio. We want folks to find that in the space where they get their news daily. And for many of our seniors, that's a print newspaper. So the investment
Yeah.
in placing that ad, and many of our newspapers locally are very gracious to do that for free. The news spotlights us, like that's really helpful. So I think that just knowing where your seniors are and being able to get to them, and reach them in a way that makes them feel comfortable. I think one thing we've really focused on is I can't tell you how many seniors would come in and it would be a couple and one spouse would do all of that paperwork year to year.
Mhm.
And then unfortunately that spouse passes away, and you can see the overwhelm in the person coming back into me that next year after that spouse has passed because they don't know what to do. We really work hard in that moment to make sure that both parties are educated on the program
Mhm.
and that we can hand them something tangible that says next year at the beginning of this month, because that's your re-verification month, you come and see this person. So really
Yeah.
creating those personal connections where we can and making sure we always follow back to the supervisor if that key team member were to depart as a trusted source of, hey, it's okay, we can work on this together. It helps reduce a lot of panic and anxiety, and it really makes a difference for our seniors.
What would you like to see more of in the field, both at the state and national level?
One of my favorite things about this program is the impact that it makes on the lives of people we serve. And I have made it my personal mission in this policy role to elevate those client stories. I think clients and folks receiving these benefits interacting directly with our legislators and our budgetary decision makers is crucial to helping the appropriations committees understand how vital this funding is and how hard local nonprofits like myself work to marry bill payment assistance with behavioral modifications for energy efficiency, with
Mhm.
home energy efficiency renovations, things like that. These funds all work together. We're short-term problem solving and long-term problem solving. So I think my first thing would be more of that direct interaction. The best
Mhm.
folks to talk about the benefits of this program are the folks that have received the benefits of this program. And that's been true for us, whether we're advocating locally with the commissioner or whether we're on the Hill in DC. We've seen that be true.
Yeah.
Um, the second thing I think I would like to see is, and Maisie, I don't know that this is going to surprise you, more data. It's really, really challenging to narrow down how utility disconnections happen because nothing happens in a silo or a vacuum. I'm a
Mhm.
part of several coalitions that work with utilities. most of the time. We are collaborative partners, and the folks that work at utilities and work to serve the population that I serve care just as much about the reasons for disconnection and why this is happening. So the problem comes into play when we're trying to find a way to mathematically, data-wise communicate why we need additional appropriations for this funding, why we need more money. Because just providing disconnection data doesn't tell the whole story. The utilities can
Yeah.
disconnect for a variety of reasons. We have to be careful and cognizant and intentional. And I think that's what I'd like to see next is how can we come together to provide data that is proprietary to many of these utilities, which I firmly understand, but also allows us to articulate the work we're doing together and tell the true story of why we need additional funding for these types of programs. So I think data accessibility would be number two. And then the third one, we are so fortunate here in the state of Ohio to have a great relationship with our compliance arm, the Ohio Department of Development. And it takes work. I think one thing that I have heard from other states and other entities, especially during COVID times and post-COVID, when all this funding was here and now it's gone and we were drinking from a fire hose and a zillion reports are due to HHS or whatever federal office,
Yeah.
it's so stressful and overwhelming. And I think the one thing that I want to manifest and really work on as we communicate with the states that are crucial to getting the funding out to us is open communication, open dialogue about needs. We've really had to work with our state. Like if you're having a heavy reporting week, let us know, because then I'll know to give you some grace on responding to my email question about a specific client I'm serving, right? I think that's so crucial to ensuring that these funds are fully utilized and that we can keep the lines of communication open and set that example for the folks that we serve.
I totally agree about the disconnect stuff. We need more information on that, and that would benefit the program massively. So my final question for you is, what advice do you have to up and coming leaders in the field?
My main insight would be to listen to the folks that have been here and understand and respect that their tenure is something to be valued. There has been a lot of innovative collaboration in this space before I can remember, before I was born, and it's important for us to take a moment, evaluate that, and really think about all of the contributions that have been made to this network, to this funding, to this effort to ensure that energy burdens are reduced and energy sustainability is not a conversation the folks we serve are left out of. That being said, I think that it is worth articulating your point as a young leader about ways that we can improve processes and procedures and to encourage tenured members of this network to hear our voices and understand that we are eager to collaborate. That's in the millennial and Gen Z code. As a member of the millennial community, I can totally feel that. I want to make sure, and I have a passion for these programs, and I want them to sustain. I want them to evolve as the needs of our clients evolve. And I think that it is important for the 2 generations, 3 generations we're chatting about here, maybe 4, to come together and realize that we can do more together than we ever could separately. I think that making sure you have the confidence to articulate what you're thinking, what you're feeling, your ideas is so important. But I also think active listening and digesting the lived experiences of folks that have helped build these programs is just as important. And if we keep both of those things in mind, and that third perfect piece of what our clients need and what we're hearing from the ground level of folks administering these programs about what they need, if we marry that all together, I don't know how that's anything but a recipe for long-term success. I am the daughter of a Hallmark store manager, so cards and thank you cards and penmanship are ingrained in my DNA and will always be very important to me. So if I'm visiting, a legislator on the Hill or a staffer, a thank you card handwritten with my business card is going out as soon as I get home. So I get that part of it. And I think that part of the reason so many folks that have built these institutions and built these programs are craving that is because the world, once technology really took off, the world just took off with it. It started moving so quickly. I oftentimes have to take a second and pause and put myself in their shoes and think, the advent of the computer and of word processors and all of this, it just launched everything into a new dimension that it would kind of feel thankless if someone like me was coming up saying, okay, well, good job, I'm ready to change all these things. So taking a minute to pause is important. So I wanted to acknowledge that. I wanted to acknowledge that that still is very important to me. As it relates to our clients, we are trying to build that right now. We had so much amazing momentum before the COVID pandemic. We were doing a wall in our lobby. NUAC did a postcard initiative for why LIHEAP was important during LIHEAP Action Month. Clients were filling them out. They were putting them up on the wall in our lobby. They were asking to take postcards home so they could be reminded to tell their neighbors about the program. We were receiving thank you cards in the mail, and we highlighted a lot of that internally because one thing we wanted to be cognizant of is folks that come into our offices for services. I think oftentimes in larger society, sometimes they're made to feel as though they have to thank me for what I'm providing. And the fact of the matter is I'm here because I care and because I am passionate about everyone living the best life that they possibly can. And I know that I would be here regardless of whether or not I thanked. In addition, clients that come in to see us are not navigating easy situations. It is chaos, it is crisis. Living in poverty is incredibly challenging. They have to be incredibly diligent and intentional about their time. So taking a second to write a thank you card to say, hey, thank you so much for everything you did for me. That could be 10 seconds that's used to work, to pay the bills, like whatever it could be. I try to be cognizant of that. I will say, I pause and I'm flashing forward to now as we have come out of the shutdown, come out of working so siloed. There is so much authenticity in the thanks we receive, whether it is a look across the desk in the office when we've completed an application, or it is a thank you card in the mail. Something is changing in our society, and I am so thrilled to be on the ground floor of it, of people saying, hey, thanks for showing up today and processing my application. I'm having a really tough time, and this made a difference to me. And what we're trying to figure out is how to harness that and how to create some momentum out of that energy that benefits both the staff that we have here who are incredibly compassionate but are susceptible to fatigue because they put so much out there, so much of themselves out there every day, and benefits our client. In no way, we always want to be cognizant of any sort of infantilization, any sort of, you have to thank me for this service. We want it to come from a space of empowerment. So to answer your question, in this moment, in 2024, we're trying to figure that out, but the energy is different. And I know that that might sound a cliche, but I'm seeing it play out every day, whether I'm at a house doing an inspection for a home weatherization with a colleague. And by doing an inspection, I mean observing because they are the ones that are licensed, or I'm out on the floor in the HEAP lobby handing out goldfish to kids because they're tired and cranky and they've been in the office for a little bit, and hearing the parents and the thanks that they have. But we're all here experiencing the same circumstances. And I think if anything, the COVID pandemic kind of taught us that like no one
Yes.
is
Yes.
exempt from this. And we have, I think, a majority of folks experienced financial hardships, particularly due to the pandemic. And if we're being honest, I think now more than ever, really re-engaging our legislators and our staffers and the general population in the narrative that is very true that you are one missed bill. So many families are one missed bill, one emergency, $1,000 fix to the furnace or the car away from experiencing needing this assistance. It makes it very, very real. And that's not to be threatening and that's not to be rude. It's to be honest. That's where society is right now. And if we can all come from that baseline of understanding, we don't have to create these silos or these hierarchies of what people need and what they shouldn't need that reinforces those stigmas. We don't have to do that. We can just say they needed help today and we were here to provide it.